Ah, fish jerks. I can't do the pilot voice. Like I don't have it. It's like ingrained, but I just don't have it. So hi, Mike.
Hey Rico, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for joining me. Real quick, people are just starting to trickle in, but I want to remind everybody the whole first part of it. Mike and I are just going to be having a conversation. We won't be looking at the chat at all. I won't see anything. Zenny's here. Hi, Zenny. A whole bunch of people are already here. If mods, you could please remind people when they come in and say hi or ask questions early. Just remind them that we're not even looking at the chat, and but we will open it up at the second half. And with that, and another big thing, Mike has hit his 1,000 subscribers. And again, not as big as it used to be since they did drop it down to 500 to get monetized, but still, 1,000 is still the cutoff to be completely monetized. And Mike just hit that. So congratulations, man. That's awesome. I'm happy. I love seeing the community, everybody rising like that. So
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, and thanks for having me tonight. I know it seems like you and I kind of both started producing content about was it 3 years ago now, and you raced past me. With the nature of my work and chasing a kid around, it's difficult for me to be consistent. So obviously that factors into growth. But last night, yeah, we kind of kicked off. I had a stream last night, just a little quick hour stream to kind of announce, and more or less be like, hey, this is happening. Thanks for all the love. Thanks for the support through the years. So it's definitely cool to see all you guys here and finally get on the focus on now that we've been around for a while.
yeah, we've definitely talked about it off and on for 2 years probably. And you're right. We were both racing to hit 500. We were neck and neck. But then again, your work takes you away from home, and we'll dive into that a little bit. Takes you away from home for extended periods of time. Plus, I've been lucky enough to have like Corey from the co-op come up for the focus on, and that was probably worth 100 subs right there. I've been lucky. I've been very lucky. So it's good that you're there, and I see a lot of growth in your future. So congratulations again.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again. And looking forward to, as it seems like as, summer slows down, I have a little more free time depending on what happens with work. So I've been dropped a couple of videos, the past few days, some actually 10, 15-minute videos. I took a trip out to the Black Hills. So just wanted to kind of share a little bit of that adventure with you guys. Because the Black Hills, obviously everybody's like, oh yeah, Mount Rushmore's out there, cool with some faces in a rock, which I mean, it's cool to see the first time, but after that, let's be honest, it's still faces. You could go in 1974 and then go again next year, and 50 years later, it's still just faces in a rock that look exactly the
Yeah,
same, right? So,
yeah.
I just wanted to kind of share, some of the other highlights that are less common in the area, like some of the hiking trails that we have to offer, and obviously one of them was an old historic fish hatchery that's actually still operating. So hopefully you guys were able to check that out and enjoyed that.
I know that that's not exactly to do with our hobby, but I love seeing those kind of things. I make some things like that myself, and I love seeing the nature hikes, and I just love seeing where people live. Or I know that's not super close to where you live, but how far away was that? How long of a trip?
So it takes me about 6.5 hours to get to where
Okay,
I was.
okay, so that's pretty good. That's a good
Depends on
distance.
how many times we stop. So it's a little bit of a trek, but my family lives out there by the Black Hills over in South Dakota yet. So we went camping with them. I was like, hey, let's. We went on a hike up Spearfish Canyon, and then we stopped at the fish hatchery. And there were, in my defense, there were fish in both videos.
Okay. Real quick too, before we dive into things, what's special about Black Hills Gold? Do you know? Do you know what makes? My wedding ring, not this one here, it was my first wedding ring. I wore it out. That's how long we've been married.
Yeah.
Was made out of Black Hills Gold, and it had a different tint to it. But do you know anything about it really? Are you?
Yeah, so the Black Hills, obviously, it's western South Dakota. Rapid City is the big city over there, and you've got Sturgis, which is popular with if you're into motorcycles, Sturgis Rally every year in August. And then Spearfish, and then you kind of get into Custer State Park, where every year you see a video of the lady getting tossed by the buffalo because she didn't pay attention to the signs. But also in the hills it's a town called Deadwood, and there's a smaller town called Lead, and in between those is what used to be the Homestake Gold Mine. And for many years, up until about 2011, the Homestake Gold Mine was the largest production gold mine in the United States. So when they announced that Homestake was shutting down as a mine, the next day, gold prices went through the roof because all of a sudden, even at the day it shut down, it was still the highest producing mine in the country.
Gotcha.
A very productive mine. There's still a lot of gold flowing out of it, but they deemed that they wanted to shut it down for whatever reason. Now it's a so Sanford, if you're familiar with Sanford, it's a lot of hospital stuff, but they do a lot of research too. They turned it into a deep underground science laboratory where they study dark matter. So they're actually shooting neutrinos and dark matter from the Black Hills in western South Dakota all the way over to another lab in Chicago underground through the dirt.
Oh, gotcha.
So they're playing catch
That's
that
cool.
way.
That's
But no,
cool.
as far as Black Hills Gold goes, so Black Hills Gold is from the Homestake Gold Mine. And then it's tinted a little bit different. It's produced by a couple of the jewelers kind of in that area. So
Okay, so maybe it's something with the mineral content of it. It's not pure gold or something, or is it how it's
I'd imagine
processed? Or
just tracing it to its origins. As far as the tint, I'm not sure exactly what gives it its tint. It could just be a process that they use, I'd imagine, because
gotcha.
it's kind of a little bit more of a it's a little bit more pale than most gold. It's got kind of a rosy hue to it
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, that's why we picked it way back when, 30 some years ago. But I just always wondered what made it different. So sorry that we went off on a side there. All right,
We're
let's get this going. I don't know a ton about you. I mean, I know that you are a pilot for the I don't know what branch of the service. I know that you live in Iowa currently. Are you? You said your family was from South Dakota. Are you also from South Dakota or Iowa, born and raised, or?
No, so I'm an import, I guess, to Iowa. So I was originally I was born in Zweibrück in Germany. My dad was active duty Air Force for 23 years. So I was actually born in Germany. So I had dual citizenship for quite some time until I decided to join the Air Force. And I said, "Hey, pick one or the other, bucko." So so obviously, here I am. But no, I was born in Germany, and then my dad was active duty Air Force for a while, so we bounced around. I've lived in Rapid City, South Dakota, Wichita, Kansas. I lived in Sioux Falls for a little bit, Charleston, South Carolina, Panama City, Florida, and I'm in Iowa now. So that's kind of
By,
I went
by
to my dad.
choice? Iowa by choice, or is it more to do with?
I don't know if anybody chooses to live in Iowa.
I didn't want to say it. Well, I know we have some Iowans in the community, and I didn't want to.
I think I saw Kelly maybe stop by earlier. But no, so I went to school at Black Hills State University in Spearfish, South Dakota, which where the Spearfish Canyon walkthrough was with the waterfalls, and then the DC Booth Fish Hatchery video that I did. Those are both in Spearfish, where Black Hills State University is located. And it's primarily a business and teaching school. I got my degree in cellular biology and physiology in 2012. So that's
Wow.
my academic background. So I went to high school and college in South Dakota. And after I graduated college, my wife and I decided to get married. So in 2012, we got married. We hit 11 years in 11 days, actually. So,
Nice. Well,
so
congratulations early.
thanks. So we decided to get married. We moved over to Sioux Falls. That's where my wife's family lived at the time, and jumped into a few different jobs over there, exploring the civilian sector a little bit. Wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my life. Worked for a hospital as a lab tech for a little bit. Worked for Poet Biorefining. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Poet
Well,
Biorefining is Poet Biorefining. So it's the largest ethanol producer in the United States.
oh, okay.
So they've got plants turning corn into booze all over the country, primarily in the Midwest because obviously
Plants. They've got plants.
that's where the corn grows. So I worked for them for a little bit, making 200 proof booze. And funny story. Side note, we'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
And so after that, I worked for a small company in Iowa. I was able to live in Sioux Falls, just as like a 30-40 minute drive over into Iowa, but basically doing animal vaccine design and production.
Wow.
So we would culture and we'd isolate and culture bugs, if you will, and then we'd kill them, turn them into vaccines, and send that off to market. Shortly after that, I got into the South Dakota Air National Guard as an F-16 avionics technician, so maintenance guy working on anything that made a beep and squeak in the jet. So anything from the flight control computers to the radar to the weapon systems, etc. Before I started flying.
And can you talk about what you fly today? You don't
Uh,
fly F-16s.
no, no, no. So I've flown in an F-16, but I don't currently fly F-16s. It's a lot of fun, but it's really hard on your body. So um, pulling G's is fun until you hit about 7, and then it just starts to hurt really bad.
Yeah, I've
So
probably
I
never even been, anywhere near that.
roller coasters. Roller coasters probably hit like 3, maybe 4, like in a good loop or a turn or something.
Gotcha.
So but now I fly KC-135s, so aerial refuelers. So it's similar in size to a Boeing 737. So if you've ever flown on like Southwest, they fly 737s just to give you a a picture of kind of what the airplane looks like. Except we have 4 engines instead of 2, and then we have a boom on the back of the jet that lowers down, and there's a receptacle on the receiver jets. And we put the boom in the hole and pass the gas to extend their range and time on station for their various missions. So
Uh, did you not? Was it you? Did you make a video once of the refueling process? Are you
uh,
allowed to do something like that?
I haven't personally published any. I've posted pictures and stuff in
Yeah,
various places.
lots of
I
pictures.
I haven't put any of it on YouTube. I've got a couple guys I work with that they set up. They've got some pretty good videos that they've put together of some of the
Okay,
stuff we've done. So if you're
gotcha.
ever interested, find me in the Discord, and I'll let Rico know that we're going to talk pilot stuff so that he can go away for a little bit, and we'll post airplane pictures for a while. So
There's tons of airplane pictures on there because Kyle's very interested. He's an air traffic controller, and I believe he has his pilot's license, right, Kyle? I can't remember, but they're very interested in airplanes. So that's just one of the many things on the Discord, though. There's tons of different things on there, all kinds of different content. It's really worth it for people. If you're not a member there, you really should be. It's a great repository of information, but it's also a great place to hang out with people. It's just a good place. So,
it's a ton
anyways,
of fun. And obviously it's fish cord, if you will. I mean, we talk about fish a lot. We talk about plants a lot.
yeah,
But about any conversation is welcome.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you don't like the conversation, wait 5 minutes and it'll change. It's just like
yep.
the weather in South Dakota.
Or complain about it if you're the admin. One of the admins. One of the admins.
Which one?
I'm one, and Steven's the other. We share co-ownership of it. So I was joking, though. I complained jokingly about the airplane stuff because it was a lot, but I wasn't really upset. Anyways, let's move along. How long have you been flying now, though?
So I started flying in 2017, so right about 5 years now. I've got about 400 hours of combat time and about 1,600 hours of total time. So
Wow.
spent a lot of time in the airplane. It's crazy. Like I'm like, oh yeah, like I've flown quite a bit. I've been flying for 5 years. That's 400 hours a year. That's pretty good. You talk to some of these airline guys. It's like your average, you know, airline pilot, whether it's Air Canada, like Kelly's good friends,
Yes.
or American Airlines or Delta. Most of those guys probably fly from 7 to 900 hours a year. So when they retire, they'll have flown, a good career's 25, 30,000 hours. That's years in the air, like literally spending a year of your life in an airplane. So, uh, long way to go.
Yeah. Are you thinking about that? How much longer do you have? Do you know? Are you?
So I'm actually being in the guard. I'm obviously, if you keep track of my channel, if you keep track of, the various chats that we have around with the fish fam, kind of getting involved. I'm gone a lot right now, but I'm actually not full time. So I'm a traditional guard guy that just takes a lot of trips and picks up days when I can to go fly the airplane and get paid. So
Gotcha.
uh,
Okay.
the airlines are always an opportunity. It's something that I'm, kind of uh, doing some various training, getting some different certifications to open up those doors, so that I can pursue those pathways if I get sick of playing Air Force games.
So you said your dad was in the Air Force forever. Was he also a pilot?
No, he was actually active duty on the enlisted side, so he wasn't a pilot. Didn't do anything with the airplanes. He worked on basically security systems and communication type equipment.
Okay. So what got you so interested in just being around the Air
Uh,
Force, growing up, or what was
yeah,
it that?
definitely. So for the most part, we lived on base. We were active duty, so we lived on base. Most of the places you go, you live in base housing there. And everywhere you go, there's airplanes all the time. So you go see the air shows. You just go sit outside and watch the airplanes buzz overhead all the time. So it gets your attention. So it's definitely um, it's a hectic lifestyle. It can be stressful sometimes. I like to say that we generally live in the highest of highs and the lowest of lows because it's either life either feels like it's really good or life either feels like it's just kicking you in the butt, right? So
Yeah, gotcha. Um, oh crap! I had something I was going to say about that. Oh! I know. So if you notice, Mike's little underneath his name there, like mine says, "I talks good," and his is Officer Fish because oftentimes when he's gone for an extended period, he grows a very, very distinguished mustache. That's really, it's not a Fu Manchu because it's much thicker. I don't know what you call that. I don't know
uh,
what that's called. It is a very. Do you have a picture by chance, just real
I
close?
do. I'm gonna send it over to my
Okay.
computer so that we can actually see what we're doing here.
Um, so that's why I started calling him Officer Fish because to me, he looks like a police officer when he grows out the mustache. But your wife absolutely hates it, right? You said your
Oh,
wife does not.
she she despises it. And that's whenever I'm home, the mustache goes away because it drives her absolutely insane. Um, so if I want to be able to sleep through the night without waking up to a razor in my face, it's just better that way.
So why do you grow when you're away from home, though? Just because, or I
It's
mean,
just something that we do for fun, to be honest.
oh, so it's like a common thing among the. Here we go. Oh, that's not even that great of a picture because the when it grows in, I mean, it is like I saw the one where you had it all the way down, and it was, I mean, it looked like you had an animal there. It looked, I mean, it was just big. It was just big. It's a very very impressive mustache, but I just always wondered why.
Just
So
for
it's
fun.
so
Just
is it something a lot of the guys do when you're
um,
gone for a while, or
usually, so deployment stashes are usually a thing.
okay,
So anytime, and depending on where you're at and the leadership at the time, they may be a little more strict or little more lenient because there are, like, as with everything in the military, there's a regulation to regulate everything. There's a regulation on how to regulate regulations. So
yeah.
there's definitely a regulation on mustaches. And I will say that most of the time on the road, it is not legal uh, by military regulations.
Okay. So it's just a little bit of rebellion, just a
Uh,
little.
just for fun.
Yeah.
You go to some of these places that aren't a whole lot of fun to live in for extended periods of time, and you do something to bring up a little bit of morale.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
I remember the one time, I don't remember where you obviously couldn't tell us where you were at, but um, I believe there was a beach nearby or something, I think,
yeah, so
and
that was
that's the time you were. It looked like you were in a nice hotel room, and your mustache was just. It was a thing of beauty. I mean, it was just all the way down, and it was waving in the breeze, and it just,
yeah, that
you
was when
know,
I was slumming in Guam. Um,
okay,
so we were in Guam, and there was no lodging available on base, so they put us downtown in one of the hotels on one of the bays. So I think that's where the officer fish thing kind of started. Somebody asked me if I had aviators. So I put some aviators on, and then things got just proceeded to get weird from there.
all right. Well, anyways, I like it. I think it's fun, and I just
It's a
always
lot of
you can always tell when Mike's not home because of the mustache, right? That's the only time you ever see it. So okay, so you wanted to tell us a funny story though. You were talking about there was a 200 proof. Why don't you
Oh
tell
yeah.
us
So
what that?
so after I graduated college, like I said, my wife and I moved, worked for an ethanol refinery. So took corn, you grind the corn up into flour, you send the flour into a big mixture of water to make a slurry. You throw some yeast and some enzymes into the slurry, you let it ferment for 4 or 5 days at such and such temperature, and boom, you get a big boozy mash. Then you run the mash through the distillation stacks, you get the booze off it, and eventually you end up getting booze. So we made roughly 200 proof alcohol, and in the United States, we make our ethanol out of corn. Um, so we make ethanol in the Midwest, and we sell it to use at gas stations, all over the globe. Well, Brazil also makes ethanol, but their crop of choice is sugarcane. So they take sugarcane and do a similar process and end up with booze from their sugarcane. Well, California, and I apologize for anybody in here that's from California. California likes to do things a little bit interesting and a little bit odd. California wants they want ethanol, right? Because it's cleaner than gasoline. It's a little more uh, uh, recurring. You can keep making it more. You can only dig up so many dinosaurs and turn them into noise before all the dinosaurs are gone. So California wants ethanol, but California wants ethanol that's made the cleanest way possible. So, like I said, the United States uses corn to make ethanol. Brazil uses sugarcane to make ethanol. Well, if you look at the processes and kind of some of the things that are involved along the way, um, the sugarcane ethanol is a little bit cleaner by your carbon footprint. It's a little bit more green. So California says, "Oh, hey, Brazil makes really clean ethanol. We're going to buy ethanol from Brazil." So Brazil loads up millions of gallons of ethanol onto a big boat. They put the boat in the water. They fill that boat with diesel. They burn the diesel to haul the ethanol to California. California pays good money for Brazil's ethanol. Brazil's like, hey, this is a great deal. We're making a lot of money to sell this ethanol to California. No complaints there. Well, Brazil also wants ethanol for themselves. So it does burn a little bit cleaner. So what Brazil says is, hey, United States, you have corn ethanol that you're going to sell cheap because California is paying us a premium. Why don't you load your ethanol? So corn ethanol and sugarcane ethanol, chemically, it's the exact same compound, no difference at all. But anyway, it's the United States puts their corn ethanol on a boat. They fill that boat with diesel. They burn that diesel to ship that ethanol down to Brazil. Boom,
Yeah.
Brazil's got ethanol back. For all we know, those boats go 100 miles offshore, anchor down for a month, and then they go back into shore. Like, hey, here you go, folks.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
how much diesel is burned in this silly process and an attempt to buy green booze? It's oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. It doesn't seem like it was thought all the way through, which is actually surprising when it comes to things like that with cost cutting and
oh
environmental
gosh,
things like that. It's not looked at all the way through. So,
it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
how long did you work at that place?
So I worked there for just under a year. So like I said, I worked at a hospital lab, running urine samples and feces and blood and whatever other bodily fluids you can come up with. But that was actually an interesting experience. I enjoyed working in the hospital. I worked overnights there. So basically, you'd sit in the lab and they've got vacuum tubes just like at the bank, and the nurse will be over on floor 47, and she'll get all the samples that she needs. She'll put them in the vacuum tube and send them over to the lab. We'd process the samples, it was kind of interesting. It was you were doing work that actually made a difference in people's lives. Whether you weren't like on the front line, you weren't the nurse, you weren't the doctor, whatever, sitting bedside, but you were doing things to help keep things moving along. I'd say
Yeah,
the toughest part about that job, um, over time, obviously there's people in care for longer times than others, right? So you start to see the same names over and over again, and this could be for days on end. This could be for weeks. We had a patient that was there for a couple months. Young girl. I think she was maybe 7 or 8, and
oh,
she ended up. So you see the same name and you see her age. And all right, it's this little girl. She ended up having like some sort of blood infection, and after 2 3 months of being in the PICU there, sadly she passed away. So that's one of those things where like you've never seen them, but you're kind of like
yeah,
you don't get to know them, but you're rooting for them the whole way,
yeah,
and then so that kind of sucks. And sometimes you're like, oh hey, one of the nurses will call and they're like, hey, I know you've been running this person's samples for a while. I just want to let you know that they got to go home today. So um,
nice. Yeah, add that human part to it where
stuff like that.
it's
You didn't
not just
have to.
food and stuff. It's
Yeah,
actually there's a human part of it.
yeah. So it had its ups and it's had its downs. Um, you know, there's a point in time where things go south, and if the person happened to be uh, a donor, if they opted to be a donor, obviously the nurse doesn't call and say, "Hey, so and so's a donor, do this." What happened in our lab was instead of the name on the sample, it would just say donor. Um,
Oh, gotcha.
so you kind of know, okay, so it's and I'm not trying to be like weird or morbid. It's just like one of those things that, like, you don't think about in a hospital. Like if you go to a hospital, like, yeah, you got family there, whatever. You hope they get better. But it's just kind of some interesting stuff going on. Like I said, it's weird how you feel like you know people just by seeing the same name over and
Yeah.
over and over again. Like, I don't know. I know that this person is pregnant, they have this infection, and they might have a broken leg. um,
Yeah, yeah.
like, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know who they are. Like, I've got a name, and an age, and I've got what's good and bad about them medically. But you see them there for like, I mean, you see people there for 2 3 months. Like, oh man, Shelby gets to go home tomorrow. This is awesome.
Yeah.
uh,
I understand that 100% though, because my wife was a nurse for a very long time. And one of the places she worked at was a experimental gynecological oncology place. And usually by time the patients got to them, because it was experimental, they were usually, on their last leg. So
okay.
a lot of the people that she dealt with every day, didn't last very long. She would tell me a work story that was a little humorous, but then at the end, then she'd say, "But then she died." And that happened quite often because, again, it was a very experimental place. It was usually people that were pretty, desperate at that point for anything.
Right.
So I understand about she got burned out on that. It's just too much. There's not too many. She did it. She worked at that place for a good 5 years, and it took a toll. It really does. Dealing with that kind of stuff, it takes a special person to do it for a long time. It really
And
does.
it takes a, like you said, a special person to be able to work the floor as a nurse, where you see the same people 3 days a week, every week for however long it may be. And then I don't know how, like, the PICU nurses do it, like peds guys. um
Oh,
we're
yeah,
working with a kid for weeks or months on end, and
yeah.
that's a lot to, you don't think about it, like, you appreciate what they do, but it's a lot to take home with you every night.
It
So
is. You gotta be good at putting stuff in compartments, right? You really got to be able to turn things off. If you can,
right.
I don't know how you do it.
It's surprising that the nursing field is predominantly female. It's slowly, like, evening out a little bit, but guys have all these little boxes, right? You've heard all the talks about, like,
Yeah.
guys, like, this is the car box. You're like, okay, my car needs gas. I'm gonna put this in this box over here. What are we having for dinner tonight? Okay, I'll put this box, and we'll figure that out later. We'll open that box, and then so guys are good at compartmentalizing things because we just have these mental boxes for everything. And then, but what's our favorite? What's anybody know? Like, do you know what a guy's favorite box is?
I don't think it's appropriate to say here.
The nothing box. We
I
can
know what my favorite box is.
we we can go into this box of nothing for hours, and we might just sit and stare and think about nothing. Like,
Yeah.
my wife's like, "What's wrong with nothing? Why?" Well, you're just sitting there. You haven't said anything in 45 minutes. Like,
Really?
is this a problem? Is this a problem?
That
So
means everything's all right. That means it's all good.
so so if you're there's a couple comedians that do different talks. We actually, my wife and I attended this weekend, like, couples retreat seminar type deal, and he talked about the guys being able to, like, understanding your wife and understanding your husband, and talked about how guys compartmentalize everything in these little boxes. And I mean, it's, you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure, if you searched, if you're interested. It's just entertaining. But
Okay, let's okay, we got plenty of time. What about hobbies other than fish? What about hobbies besides the fish? And we'll get a little bit into the fish too, but what kind of things do you like to do in the spare time that you have? I mean, you like to get out into nature, I know that.
I do. So anything outside, really, anything outside, particularly with my kid. There's things that I do outside now that I have a kid that I didn't necessarily do before. There's also things outside that I did before that I don't necessarily do now, just because obviously when you have a kid, your priorities change. Things that you you do change. It's not that you don't like those old things anymore. It's just you cater to a different environment.
Yeah.
For example, like before I had my kid, like I used to go mountain biking all the time. Well, I'm not going to take a 6-year-old up a ski lift on a mountain bike to bomb down a hill at 45 miles an hour and jump off rocks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Not
so
yet, at least.
right. So when I was in college, like I said, I went to Black Hills State University and Spearfish right in the Black Hills. So we had mountain biking and hiking and stuff. So I got big into that and did a lot of photography. Um, I took some photography classes in college. Which like, you're a biology guy and you took photography classes. Well, yeah, we don't always spend our money the best way, do we? So, so I
You
paid.
gotta have hobbies, man. You gotta have things that are outside of it, you know?
So I've got I still do photography on the side a little bit. I don't really post a whole lot of it anymore. It's still something I enjoy. I like to get out and enjoy that stuff. And now that like photography used to be huge, and now the digital video is so incredibly capable and easily
Yeah.
accessible. Like it's fun to like I'll make videos. One of the other things I like to do is I like to go fishing. Like I'll take my GoPro and I'll mount my GoPro on my kayak, and I'll go fishing for the weekend. I'm like, well, now I've got all these video of these fish or this video of just the lakes and the places I've been. So I compile those, and I've got another channel that I post some of the other like not all things fish type related stuff. So some of that's like mountain biking, some of it's fishing. I'm big into like Jeeps and off road. So my wife and I own two Jeeps. One of them is more of a rock crawler toy. So big into that. So that lets me, turn wrenches on the Jeep, go take the Jeep off road, explore some of these backwoods areas, get into the hills, and then while I'm out there, I can take photos of like do photography stuff in nature. We can do photography stuff of like the Jeeps doing rock crawling stuff, make videos, do all kinds of stuff. Then camping, obviously, another outdoor thing. So a lot of that stuff is turns out to be more spur of the moment type deals. Like, hey, I'm in town this weekend. I'm not working. Let's take the Jeep out and we'll go camping or whatever. So used to be, more into video games when I was in college. Since I left college, just kind of drifted away. I know some of you guys play League. Some of you guys play the new the Zelda game on Switch that came out a month ago. We haven't. I don't think we've seen Zen Ginger for a month because she's had her face stuck in her Switch playing Zelda.
Yeah. She's been around, but definitely it's lessened her time with us for sure. And with Bex as well. Bex, both of them been playing the hell out of it. And
So
I think Leo too. I think Leo was also getting ready to play it.
So I never played Zelda much. I played like the classic Zelda, like Ocarina of Time, and then Majora's Mask, and then the whole series lost me at Wind Waker. Things just got weird. I wasn't a fan of the graphics. I wasn't a fan of the storyline. So played a lot of. I've always been into first person shooters. So when Halo came out on the original Xbox, for those of us that aren't super old but old enough to have played some of the original platforms, so I was big into Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3. Kind of lost it at Halo 4. Um, and then real time strategy stuff like StarCraft,
Oh
like
yeah.
late 90s, early 2000s StarCraft, trying to play on 56K, and just
Yep.
getting
Show
your
me the money.
crap kicked in by no offense, but people overseas that they got paid to do this stuff. And
Yeah. They've got leagues of it
like,
back then, and yeah.
yeah, like even back then it was crazy. Like the leagues of computer games. It's like I think what was it? Unreal Tournament was probably like the big first person shooter type deal back then. And now, so I don't play a lot now. Most of the time, if I'm playing something, I'll sit on the computer and play Warzone for a few minutes, or I'll play Halo with my little brother. A lot of it's just Call of Duty mobile on my stupid cell phone. It is so easy to sit down and burn an hour and a half, and you're like, why is my phone battery dead? Because I've been playing Call of Duty mobile for an hour. Um, so that Clash of Clans, if you're into Clash of Clans, Scotty runs the Clash of Clans uh, clan for us. Pretty small. There's a few of us that play. Other than that, not a whole lot of video games anymore these days. My kid, this last deployment, he's like, Dad, he has two Nintendo Switches, like two grandparents. You get two of everything, right? So he's got a Switch. He's got the Switch Lite, and then he's got the full size Switch. He's like, Dad, why don't you take my Switch? and then we can play Fortnite together. I was like, dude, I've never played Fortnite. I've watched it a few times. I don't get it. He's like, no, no, no. Like, I'll teach you how to play. Fortnite might be the worst game I've ever played in my life. I don't know how kids play it.
I've never played it. I don't play first person shooters at all. I've
It,
never been good at them, but especially these days, I just can't do it. So
it's like this weird third person kind of hybrid deal. Is like, I was like, dude, why can't we play like GoldenEye or something that makes sense? He's like, no, we're playing Fortnite. I'm like, all right. So he basically, I mean, the kid's 8, sharp as a tack. If he's lucky, maybe one day he'll be as smart as I am. But anyway, he's just kicking my ass at Fortnite. I'm like, dude, this game is terrible. Like he'll sit and play Fortnite for hours. I'm like, dude, this is miserable. Like, why can't I go outside and play basketball or something?
play something I can beat you at.
Right. So no, that like I said, doing stuff with my wife and kid. It's one of our hobbies. So he's big into hockey right now. So my wife coaches this hockey team in the winter
Wow,
and
nice.
through the summer. So we've been traveling a lot for that lately. Going to Minneapolis, South Dakota, some different parts of Iowa, and then in the summer and fall, my coaches baseball and soccer teams. So baseball's over, soccer's over for right now. So taking a little break. We're getting some downtime. It's been a super busy summer, obviously with my work and that, and we're just we're a super active family in the summer. We like to go camping, fishing, skiing, so all kinds of that stuff. So then when it slows down in the fall, we get back into hockey season, and he spins up for hockey. So definitely, super involved in his activities and what he does, and
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember those days. I mean, my kids are all adults, but um, yeah, I definitely remember all those days. And my kids didn't play a lot of organized sports. My youngest or my oldest son played football when we lived in Arizona, but when we moved to New York, they didn't have a league or anything. They didn't have football, and he really wasn't big on baseball or soccer or anything else. So um, I was very proud of my daughter, though. They, for some reason, put her in. She was supposed to play in the girls' league for baseball, and for some reason, they put her in the boys' league. Her name's Ariel, so it's not like it's
right.
Um, well, I guess I mean Ariel is a very common Jewish name, so I suppose I shouldn't say that. But anyways, um, and she played, the entire season, and she did a great job at it. She was a good player. So, but anyways, I do remember those days and spending so much time, um, and such. It was so worth it, just having that time with them. You're lucky that you get to be a coach. I was never a coach, just a parent sitting there, but I went to all the games I could, and I miss those days a little bit. Especially like the baseball, and they had a late afternoon game, so by the time they're done playing, it's night. But it's still warm, and
Right.
I miss those days a little bit. Um, I sort of wanted to go back to something that you talked about at the very, very beginning before I forget about it. You talked about living in a lot of different places as you were growing up because of the Air Force and everything. Did you have any of those places that you would like to go back to? Or since you've done so much traveling now, is there some place that let's say you had, and this question is going to come up, so I don't want to ruin it. You could live anywhere you want. Where would you like to live?
I don't know. So, my dad was active duty growing up, so there's places that I liked and places that I didn't like. I wouldn't
Give
like
us one of each, too. Give us one that you really didn't like.
We lived in Charleston, South Carolina. Not a fan. Like there's cool history there. Super fun place to visit. Like my wife is actually, she just ran out the door a little bit ago. But Thursday she's flying down to Charleston to go hang out with some of her friends there for the weekend. So Charleston, I wouldn't live there. Super cool place to go visit for 4 or 5 days. That's about it.
Is there anything about it specifically that
Um,
just doesn't speak to you?
just not a fan. I mean,
Okay.
it might be some folks' vibe. It's definitely an interesting scene, I guess, but it's not what I'm into right now. The ocean's nice. Like I love the ocean, but if I'm gonna live near the ocean, it's not gonna be in Charleston, South Carolina. So,
Okay.
a place that I'd like, I'll always be partial to the Black Hills. So that's where I went to high school and college. That's kind of when everybody's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, where's home?" It's like, "Oh, like South Dakota's home," because that's where I have uh, like I've got a wide variety of memories growing up, bouncing all over the place with the military. That's kind of like where those big like core memories are. Like if I go back, unfortunately because of the job situation, here we are in Iowa.
Yeah.
And as far as places I want to go, um, there's it's just with the Air Force and traveling so much, you just go put pins in map and see like, hey, could I live here someday? Yeah, it was fun to visit. I don't think I'd want to live here. All right, let's go try somewhere else. My wife is originally from the Loveland area, over by Geek Boy and Bex
Oh,
and Kyle. So she's got a little bit of a yearning to go back over to the Colorado area. My brother right now lives in Loveland, so that's an option maybe down the road. Um, it, Colorado now is a lot different than Colorado 10 years ago, though. Colorado 10 years ago, you had my attention. Colorado now, you got to get into the outskirts, man. I don't know. It gets it's a different mix. So
I feel that way about any place, so I'd rather live on the outskirts. I just don't like cities anymore.
I'm not a big city guy. Like where I live now, it's about 75,000. I was like, that's a good number. It's big enough to have like the big stores that you'd want to go to, and it's small enough to get away from most of the riffraff.
Yeah. We have 1,200 in the little village that I live in.
Okay.
1,200 and I think it's 27 square miles.
Okay.
1,200 people spread out over
It's nice to have
27 square miles.
It's nice to have some
Yeah.
elbow room,
Yeah.
stretched out.
I
So,
just, when you've got young kids though, and when you're younger, I can see the appeal of the cities, but I just, I like the peace and quiet. That's all. I can go outside and not see a soul, you know.
right. Yeah.
I could be outside for 2 hours and not hear a car, you know. I absolutely love it.
No, my dad's originally from the Massachusetts area. I'm like, if you drive an hour in Massachusetts, you could hit 5 or 6 different states. I tell people that I can drive 4.5 hours across South Dakota and not see another car, and people look at me
Yeah.
like psychotic. Like, you'll pass through a few towns. You're gonna pass through Wall. You go to the Wall drugstore. You'll pass through Mitchell. You go to the Corn Palace, and that's about the extent of it on the way over.
The Corn Palace? What's the Corn Palace?
It's the world's only corn palace. So it's the Mitchell Corn Palace. They have it's like it's just one of those tourist straps. It's actually pretty cool. Um, they use corn and make all kinds of different artwork on the outside of it. Each year. So
I've never heard of it. I've never been through that part of the country though.
see if I can. So it's
Corn
literally,
Palace.
yeah. So it's just a building that they put corn on the outside of and decorate. I think they might do like small events inside. I don't know. I've never been in it, driven by it.
Yeah.
So it's like they were like, oh yeah, what's in South Dakota? You got the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, Custer State Park, Wall Drug Store, and the Corn Palace.
Okay.
I mean, we've got the Badlands, but like, I mean, the Badlands is this vast expanse of super cool nothingness, right? Like,
Yeah.
you stop and look at the Badlands like for 5 minutes. You're like, okay, cool. Now it looks like this for the next 100 miles. All right, next, let's go to the hills and actually find some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very deserty too, the Badlands, right? It's very dry. It's very arid. Yeah. I've seen a lot of pictures. Never, like I said, never been through.
So
We have we have an ice palace that they do every year,
oh, really?
and it's made out of big chunks of ice they take out of the lake and stuff. So but the whole thing's gone. I was just wondering if they was the same with the corn, like they made it out of corn, but it sounds like it's a building that they just decorate with corn. And
More or less.
I'm gonna have to look it up later because I'm interested in it now. The Corn Palace.
Don't drive to South Dakota for the Corn Palace, but
but if you live there, it's probably something you're aware of at least.
if you mention the Corn Palace ever being South Dakota, boy knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Now you don't really have an accent because you've lived all over the place. Do you feel like people in South Dakota do have an accent? Do they have a little bit of like the Minnesota, like the don't you know kind of thing?
so obviously there's North Dakota and South Dakota, right?
Yeah.
But more realistically, it should be East Dakota and West Dakota because the Missouri River splits the two of them from east to west. So you have West River and you have East River, and it's like East side versus West side, man. Like West River, it's mostly cattle. East River, it's mostly corn and soybeans. West River, I would say, generally has the more of the lack of an accent. East River, you get close to North Dakota and Minnesota, and you start dragging your O's out, and you start saying some A's, and so
Yeah.
there's a little bit of an accent. It's definitely regional within the area. Um,
Yeah, there really isn't an Iowa accent, really. I don't think. I mean, I can't.
it's
I grew up in Indiana, so it's not that far away.
right.
A couple of states away, and there really isn't much of an accent there. I don't believe either. The Midwest doesn't have. I mean, there's parts that do have strong accents, but you definitely don't have one, and it's probably because you've moved around so much, right? Does your wife does she? I know what her name is, but I wasn't sure if you would. Does she have an accent?
So she actually she went up to northern Minnesota to play hockey at her first year of college. So she was big into hockey in high school, played into college a little bit. And even though she was only up there for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, she's got the Minnesota.
Okay.
She likes to drag her O's out a little bit. But
It's a fun one. It's a fun one. It's I don't know why.
it's the typical. We're far enough south that we don't have that northern Midwest accent, and we're far enough
Yeah.
north that we don't have like the Oklahoma. We don't start dragging things out too much. But you're right. So like I said, my dad's from the Massachusetts area. He's been gone from there for years, but we go back. He's got a twin brother. We go back and see him, and he's definitely got the Boston accent going, like
Yeah.
the hardcore New Englander.
Yeah.
And we lived in Florida and South Carolina, and when we lived in Florida, I was maybe 9, 10, 11 years old, but I couldn't understand what people were saying. Like Florida is like
Really?
you're getting a little bit of deep south in some of those, backwoods Florida areas. So they started throw. I was, 9 or 10. All I knew was the Midwest at that point in time in my life, and they started throwing some y'alls at me. And they started fixing to. I'm like, Mom, I don't know what the hell fixing to means. What are you? Well, what's broken that you're fixing to?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I remember distinctly. We still talk about it occasionally. I went over to my buddy's house. He had a little brother, and his mom was hollering at him, "Now, Chase, I'm fixing to put you on a shirt." I'm like, "You're fixing to put you on a shirt. So are you going to lay him on top of the shirt? Like, what the hell is going on here?" Just mind was blown. Uh,
Yeah.
so maybe Jenna, is y'all and fixing to a thing? I know Jenna was running around in here. Maybe that's a thing in Louisiana. I don't know. I haven't spent much time in Louisiana. It's too hot and muggy for me down there. Like Florida's like hot and there's like some humidity, but it's like my skin feels soft humid. Like Louisiana is just you wake up and the air conditioner's still set to 69 degrees and you're sweating in bed because it's just a swamp. Uh,
I have never been to Louisiana either. I'm fixing to fix that someday. But when I lived in Arizona, though, fixing what a lot of people said fixing too. But
yeah,
they could be transplants because Arizona at the time everybody was from someplace else. There were very few natives, in the 70s in Arizona. It was everybody from all these other places. So
that's
I heard fixing quite a bit, even out
it,
there in Arizona.
with the Midwest. I don't know, like as the population grows and as people start moving away from some specific states, we'll leave the politics out of it. We'll just stick with the geo side of the geopolitical thing. There's obviously people moving out of certain areas, right, because of decisions being made there or whatnot. Um, People are kind of migrating into the Midwest and exploring new territories. Like, so my folks live in Rapid City. Their new neighbor is from Virginia, and they're like, we just wanted to go see something different, and there's nobody out here. We love it. They're like, it's like it. I have, like as we talked about, we have some elbow room. We got some space. We're not standing on top of each other. We can buy a house and live for an affordable price. We don't need to make $300,000 a year just to eat ramen. So the cost of living mostly in the Midwest is quite nice. I said Colorado 10 years ago is a lot different Colorado now because of there's an influx of people largely moving north uh, from some different areas, whether it be Texas. I know Texas seems like people are leaving Texas. There's some people moving into Texas from one area, and there's some people leaving trying to get away from it. It's the Midwest is this. this big old melting pot right now. Like you'll always have like New England where you got your like Boston versus New York stuff. You'll have your Florida, you got your like Georgia peach type. You'll have your guys that enjoy sunshine on the beach being bums over in California, and then like just we're kind of in the middle and things just it's just a steady flow and I don't know if that's why we don't have accents in the Midwest is because just a little bit of everybody just mixing together and you're not around the same accent for 27
Yeah.
years in a row. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think accents are little by little going away because that very thing. I mean, I always talk about, how homogenized we are now with, like even in the 50s when the freeways came through and it used to be every place was very, very different, right? All these little towns were very different than a town 200 miles away. But now things are sort of the same strip malls, the same Chili's, the same Applebee's, there's a lot of the things. So a lot of our individual aspects of our personalities and our makeup is going away. I think I think it's something that's going to happen and continue to happen because we're more connected now than we've ever been, right? And it's only going to get more so.
right.
Uh,
Tra-
anyway,
travels become so much easier to get out of those small isolated areas and expand your broaden your horizons a little bit.
yeah,
I
and
think
people just like to move. They like to pick up and move and go somewhere else. I did it, much like you. You had a good reason for it. I went to 13 schools through first grade through high school.
really.
13 different schools in 12 years because my dad liked to move.
Oh,
We
really?
didn't need to move. He wasn't in the military. He just enjoyed moving. So we moved all the time. Hated it. Hated
That's
it.
one
So
thing. Growing up in the military, like so like I said, my dad was active duty, so about every 2, 3, 4 years we'd get up and move because dad's job had to move. So now that I've not been in the military, um, like I can stay where I'm at if I want. It's a beauty of the guard.
yeah,
It's an awesome thing, but like every 3, 4 years, like, well, are we ready to move or what? What do we want to do right
you
now?
start getting that bug, right? Like you feel like you're supposed
Go
to.
see something else. It's crazy, and that's just like it's just instilled in your blood when you grow up in it. I guess like there's
Yeah.
people like I went to high school with people and like, oh my God, we're moving for the first time in my life. I'm like, all right, you're 17, 18 years old. You're in high school. Like, where are you moving to? Oh, 2 blocks down the street.
Yeah.
Hold, hold on here. You're worried about a move and you're moving 2 blocks down the street. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a big deal. There's a lot of change going on in my house right now. I was like, other than the four walls that you live in, what's changing? It's still the same drive to school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And having been through it myself, though, I am the opposite. I don't want to move. Like, I did. We moved 3 times, my wife and I, since we've been to 4 times since we've been together. One of those was across country. We left Arizona and came to New York, and we bought this house about 15 years ago, and that's it. I mean, I'm done. I'm not.
Yeah.
They'll take me out of this place. I'm not moving again. That's it. And I think it's some good and bad. And what do you think? Do you agree? When you move so much, you find it easier to make friends, but at the same time, I feel like you don't make as deep of friendships because you're going to move. Do you
Yeah.
agree? Especially when you were younger. Not so much now. Things are different, but when you were younger and you moved so much.
So I can definitely tell. So my younger brother and I are 7 years apart. So he kind of got the backside of my dad's military career. I was kind of more in the middle of it. And there's definitely, obviously, there's an age difference, but I can definitely look at him and see where he's the type that struggles to make friends because he was the type that we sat in one spot until he was 3 or 4, and we pretty much sat in one spot for the rest of his life until he decided to get up and go to college and move on. And he's more of the type that he struggles to make friends, and his personality type, I guess, is he needs those friends, right? Like it's a big deal if he doesn't have any close friends, and he has a hard time making them, and he like clings on to them pretty tight. Myself, I'm like, I mean, I can go talk to Joe Blow. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm friends with the neighbor, whatever. But if I don't talk to him for 6 to 9 months, I'm like, hey, that's just how things go, right?
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Um, So I definitely uh, it there's perks and there's drawbacks to it, because my wife's dad was in the Air Force for a much shorter period of time. He served, but for a shorter time than my dad. Um, so some of the just like the ways of thinking and the ways that we react to things because we're brought up in that environment, it's easy for us to disconnect, I guess. So her and I kind of butt heads because we see things completely different. Uh, so, but that happens, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, no, it obviously, as with everything, it has its ups and downs. I think it's for most people, it's a good experience. You don't have to go the full 20 years anymore. Um, it's a good experience to go out, get out, do it, see a little bit of the world. Even these days, like, all right, college is super expensive. Well, you can pick up a trade in 4 years and get it paid for, and then you can get out. You don't have to do 20 years. Like the military is not a career. Like it used to be. Like for a lot of people, the military was always like a career. Like that's what you did. But now you can jump into the military for 4 years, jump out, get all your school paid for. Plus, with the National Guard, whether it's air or army, they'll send you to school for free. Like, you go get a bachelor's degree for no money, and you hardly ever work a year. Like you do basic or you do boot, and then you do your tech school for a few months, and then you part time it until your commitment's up. And hey, you got your school paid for. You got a little bit of insurance along the way, and if you want to continue to part time it, great. If you want to go see the world and do something completely different, hey, no harm, no foul. Thanks for playing. We appreciate what you did.
Yeah,
So no,
yeah.
it's obviously, right now we're focused in on me. Do you have any military background at all, Rico, or does
No,
your
no,
no?
nothing, and not even in my family. My dad was very upset because he had rheumatic fever, so his heart was damaged when he was a kid, and he tried to join and wasn't able to. But he was very bitter the rest of his life because of the benefits that veterans get, where he couldn't get because of his health.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, I have no military background at all. Just never. My 20s were not good. We'll just leave it at that.
You had a good time in your 20s. Let's be honest.
I had a good time, but I'm still paying for it now. A very long time later. So you know what? Let's go ahead and open it up to the chat. Wait, before we do that, so you talked a little bit. You Do you want to tell us your other channel? You said you have a second channel. What's the name of that?
So right now it's fairly small. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 subscribers on it. It's like the first YouTube channel I make. And then like as I make personal videos, I'm like, hey, like I make a video of the kid playing in the rain, like want to show it to my parents because we lived in Texas at the time. I'll upload it over there. But if you look up Black Hills TJ, there's Jeep stuff on there. There's mountain bike stuff on there. There's random crap. So I just kind of that's where I just dump stuff that I want to share with friends. So a lot of stuff over there is unlisted. Um,
Oh,
so
gotcha. So,
it's just just
okay,
something so I can send somebody specific a link so that they can go check it out or
okay,
that
okay.
kind of stuff.
Um, is there anything that you want to tell us about your channel or anything? I mean, again, Mike did get his 1,000 subscribers just the other day. Had his first live stream yesterday and got a few super chats. So he's already or membership stuff, right? Membership stuff came in. Is that what?
Yeah, it was crazy. So I was just traditionally in the past I stream pretty irregularly. But I set up a stream last night to talk about kind of updates on what I've been doing, where the channel's going. And usually like when I stream in the past, you get 15, 20 people that pop up. There were like 35 people in there last night. And the chat was like, blowing up. And then next thing I know, like, oh, memberships are a thing. And there's like, so and so's member, so and so's member. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot to keep up with. Like, I don't know how you bigger channels do it. Um, but so I did. So obviously my channel for I think everybody that I've seen in the chat recognizes me for the most part. But if there's anybody new out there, all things fish, we talk about primarily fish stuff. Every now and then you get a short of there might be an airplane or a dog or cat here somewhere in there. But it's largely just for informational advice type thing. So it's mostly freshwater stuff, dabble in saltwater, heavily planted, breeding fish, stuff like that. I do have a fish room downstairs in the basement. Uh, about I think I own probably 40 pieces of glass. Only maybe 20 of them have water in there right now. But so yeah, that's my channel in a nutshell. And now that we hit things at work are slowing down a little bit. Um, plus hitting 1,000 is kind of little bit of a fire under my butt to do some more YouTube stuff. So going to try to offer some more content, hopefully that people find usable. A lot of what I do in my video content is to introduce people to resources that they might not otherwise be super familiar with, because everybody knows, like, as far as fish stuff, everybody knows the big ones like bulk reef supply if you're into saltwater, aquarium co-op if you're into freshwater, KG Tropicals prime time. So I tried to go out, and one of the things that I did, this was for 12 days of Christmas. Each day I more or less created a challenge. I'm like, hey, go utilize this channel as a reference, and here's some questions that I want you to answer from. Go watch one of their videos, see what you think of them. Maybe it's somebody that you'll start following again. To introduce people to different concepts, whether it's reefs or brackish tanks or just new resources that aren't the super popular big names that are all kind of saying the same thing all the time.
Gotcha. Shit. What am I hearing? Yeah, I just turned it off. For some reason, it was going. I mentioned memberships, and it started going through all the members. I don't. That's the weirdest thing. It usually it only does that when somebody does something. See, look, Land Giraffe just became a member. She's been a member for a very long time. It said Steven, so I don't know what's going on, why it's walking through all of the members. But yeah, that's just one of the little pop-ups I have. Maria Z. I don't know why it's going through all of the members all of a sudden, so I'm going to turn that off. Anyways, and besides the channel, is there something else that that we didn't talk about that you think is important to share with people about, something that's happened in your life or something, I know it's a hard question to ask, but every once in a while somebody's got, like, oh yeah, actually this happened to me and it's important in my life. Anything like that you want to share?
It's one of those things that it's stuff that comes up in conversation is
Yeah.
kind of a better way to present that stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll open it up to people in the chat, and if they have anything they want to know more about, whether it's a career move or an aquarium stuff or family stuff, um, definitely more than interested. You probably saw my wife. Like I said, we've been married 11 years. She just went. We play beer league hockey together, so she just went to go play hockey. Um, so like I said, she coaches the kid, and then she played into college a little bit. So her and I started playing together, playing men's league. So she's off to hockey practice. And then the dogs, you might have seen the dogs running around. We used to have the greyhound that you've probably seen in the shorts. Sometimes he runs around. The sheepdog who's running
Yeah.
around sleeping somewhere. Then we had a standard poodle that was more or less my wife's baby, and unfortunately he passed away.
Yeah. Just a
So
short time ago.
it's been
That's
a
always hard.
hectic summer, lots of ups and downs, being gone for work. Did the deployment, came back, kind of. I think I've done more water changes on my fish tanks in the last 2 weeks than I have probably the past 6 to 9 months, just because this is the longest stint I've been at home. So this is the third week I've been at home. This is the longest consecutive period that I've been at home since probably December.
Wow.
It's
And do you like that? I mean, do you enjoy that?
it's cool to go see different places.
Yeah.
If I was a single guy, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go all the time, and I would ditch the fish completely, and I probably wouldn't even have a house. I'd just be like, hey, let's go do all the things, let's go see the world. Obviously, flying's fun. Going places with your coworkers and your buddies is a good time.
Yeah.
Whether it's Hawaii, like we had a work trip to Louisville, so we went and did the Bourbon Trail, stuff like that. That's a ton of fun. Unfortunately, being gone also means that when I get home, I get to come home to the kid, and he's like, "Dad, can you stay home for a little while?"
Yeah.
So like when I'm at home, it's super busy at home most of the time. When I'm on the road, it's usually busy on the road. So
I don't know how you guys do that kind of stuff. Through the first 22 23 years of my marriage, I did not spend one single night away from my wife in 23 years. Not once. I have a very good friend who that's what he does. He'll be gone for 5 weeks. He'll be gone from home, and then he comes home for a weekend, and he's gone for 5 weeks. And he does it all the time, and he absolutely loves it. I just don't know how you guys can do it.
I love getting to go and see different things. Fortunately, my wife is extremely patient and super ambitious and motivated, and she takes care of the house and the kid and the dogs and everything at home. Generally speaking, like I was gone for 2 months. I just told her, I was like, there's two 55-gallon drums of RO water, just top off the tanks, and that's all you need to do. So came home, and for the most part, tanks were in pretty good shape. I did lose a few fish. Never was able to figure out the reason. But for having 15, 20 fish tanks, she did pretty well. So definitely.
You know what? Real quick too, before we ask, and Kyle already asked one, but how did you get into fish keeping? What was it about fish keeping that, especially because you move so much, what made you think about keeping fish?
So I originally got into fish keeping when I was in high school. I think I was a freshman in high school. My dad had a 29-gallon aquarium, under gravel filter, and it was just kind of a mosh pit type deal. Big white gravel, fake plants and stuff. We had like angelfish in there, and just whatever fish my dad thought were a good idea that day. We were at the pet store. He threw in there, and then I slowly took over. I started doing the maintenance on it. I started adding things into it, and then this was probably roughly 2003. I was like, oh, let's put live plants in it. So I started getting into live plants, and I was like, I had an Amazon sword, some hornwort, and some anacris because that's all the local shop had. It was like those were the plants that you had at your disposal. So we started there. So it was an under gravel filter, big old gravel. Was growing some plants. I'm like, oh hey, like there's other plants out there, but the internet says I need more light. So I went out and got a 65-watt compact fluorescent coral life light, put over the top of it, and then slowly started adding more plants. Ended up putting 3 2-liter bottles of DIY CO2 on it, and it just I enjoyed it. Started breeding stuff, started setting up more tanks, and it's just kind of blown up since then. So,
Gotcha.
I've had anywhere from 1 tank to 30 tanks running at a time. I actually had when I built my fish room downstairs, I bought 2 fish rooms from separate people, and I think I had 69 pieces of glass, and I've downsized to the ones that I want to use. And even now, I'd say probably half the stuff I have is empty, just because it's uh, being gone so much. I'll set a tank up. I'm like, okay, can I maintain 10 tanks? Okay, I can maintain 10 tanks. All right, I'll set another tank up. Can I maintain 12 tanks? Nope, 12 is too many. Well, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back a little bit. And obviously, everybody's like, well, why don't you set up auto water changes? Like, I'm not a huge fan of auto water changes. They have their benefits, but we won't get into anything too fishy right now. But it's like I like to get into my tanks and mess with them. I don't want them to just be on a switch that just runs all the time. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, and it's slowly exploded over the years. I've bred everything from I've bred a wide variety of freshwater fish. I've bred saltwater fish. I've bred freshwater, saltwater inverts. Obviously, I propagate a lot of plants. You guys have seen my planted tanks. I've propagated some corals in the past when I was a little more salty. So it's a vast, a wide cast net of experience that goes moderately deep. Unfortunately, saltwater technology, I've kept up pretty heavily in freshwater stuff. So as technology in freshwater changes and as different techniques and methods come out, I've kept up on that stuff. Saltwater, like I'm asking Atkins questions about saltwater because he's in that new stage where he's been in it for 2-3 years. Like he's super ambitious, going out learning everything, and he knows all the new stuff. I know saltwater stuff from 10 years ago because that's the last time I really got into saltwater. So, obviously, like for the most part, the concepts are the same, but technology on the saltwater side, holy crap! Oh my gosh, it's insane.
You said a couple of things that you seem to have picked up a lot from your dad. Are you guys? Is he still around? Is he still with us?
Yeah, definitely. So,
are you guys super close today? Are you?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
so,
you can kind of tell. You've some of the stuff you've mentioned is my dad, and you've definitely. So you've got a great relationship with your dad.
Yeah, no, I'm super close to my parents, super close to my little brother. We usually, I live 6 hours away, but fortunately this summer has worked out that I've had the time to travel, so I've been able to hang out with them probably every 3 weeks or so. So we do a lot of camping and fishing together and all that kind of stuff. So my wife's family, she still has both her folks. She's got two brothers. They live nearby. They live about an hour away, so we see them pretty regularly. We see my family pretty regularly, and yeah, not I don't want to make it sound like I didn't like pick up stuff from my mom, but like
Sure.
my as far as my hobbies go, like hobbies and things that like, so it was I wouldn't say like a traditional household, but a traditional like military kind of upbringing, right? Where dad's the military guy and dad's kind of the breadwinner and mom goes out and finds whatever work she can at whatever city you happen to move to for the next 2 to 3 years, because it's hard to it's tough to make a career and go
Yeah.
into a job interview and be like, hey, you're going to get me for 2 3 years. Give me the best the best thing you can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she has this huge skill set, but just because of the nature of the beast moving around with the military every 2 to 3 years, it's hard to market yourself because they don't want to pay you a ton of money and invest a lot in you because they know they're gonna lose you regardless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
A lot easier today though with remote work and stuff. So
oh
people going through it today have a huge benefit of the internet. Being able to
right.
because there's so many remote jobs now that
Like Stephen P is doing a lot of remote stuff now.
yeah.
He actually has to get up out of bed and be at a on video meeting at like 8 a.m. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it. That is a drastic,
Well,
drastic.
he's sort of used to it. I mean, his new job does require him to do that, but he's been doing remote stuff for
Oh
for
yeah,
quite
yeah.
some time. So yeah. Okay, let's finally open it up to the chat. I'm only about 15 minutes behind, so
Okay.
I'll do the questions. My first one is from Kyle. Earlier, Mike said he wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. Did anyone tell him he could only choose one or the other?
No. So originally, growing up, I always thought that airplanes were super cool. And then I got into college, and like I said, my degree is actually I've got a bachelor's in cellular biology and physiology. So the original intent was to actually go to veterinary school. So growing up,
Oh,
um, wanted to get into veterinary school, and then about halfway through college, I was like, "Hey, this flying thing actually sounds pretty cool again." So I was like, "I'm committed to the biology degree." But luckily, the Air Force doesn't care what your degree is in. It could be psychology, biology, business, underwater basket weaving. They just care that you have a piece of paper that says Rico Stan earned his bachelor's degree in bubble blowing. Like, all right, sweet. You got your bachelor's. You can fly an airplane.
Bubble's been talking again, hasn't he?
So actually, I tried to. So as far as active duty pilots go, you apply each year. They have a board to be an active duty pilot for the Air Force, and if you don't get selected, then you just don't get selected. So I applied right after I graduated college, so 2012, 2013 timeframe, and I didn't get selected that year. So that's when I jumped into the civilian sector and started doing more stuff, like with the hospital, and decided, I wasn't ready to give up the pilot gig. So started talking to some Air National Guard bases as opposed to active duty stuff, and
Gotcha.
ended up jumping into the maintenance scene to get around the jets and get around the pilots and start bouncing questions off them and getting some gouge, and then one thing led to another, and here we are.
Gotcha. Um,
Before we field
yeah.
another question,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna step out for just 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna take care of the dogs quick and grab a beverage. I'll be right back, Rico.
Sure. No problem. No problem. I'll say some highs. Hi, everybody. Highs. We'll get to yours. I'm at Zen Gingers next. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Still 60 people hanging out with us. This Saturday coming up is going to be Nathan, Mr. Hovey, and I'm going to find out how to pronounce his name because I know he said it and I can't remember. But Nathan will be our guest for this coming up Saturday. And then I don't have next Tuesday scheduled yet. Maybe Diego. No, I'm sorry. Next Tuesday, Pooplin, and Foxanne will be doing their members only stream. So that next Tuesday will be their stream instead. I might do just a quick hour-long stream before theirs because they go at 8 o'clock Eastern time. But but I might do a stream before that just to hang out or something. Basically, an afternoon delight in the afternoon at night. Let's see what else. I was going to bring up some other stuff that's happened for people, and nothing's coming to mind right now. Yeah, nothing. I had some things I wanted to mention, stuff that's going on with different people. Oh, McStreamy on Wednesday nights is no longer. They are moving to Friday night. Stephen, what was the time again? Was it 8:30 Eastern or 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Friday nights instead of Wednesday night? So McStreamy is changing. Welcome back.
Thanks, Rico.
Okay, Zen Ginger's up next. Zenny would like to know if Mike would rather fly 1,000 different airplanes in his life or breed 1,000 different fish.
You can do both.
It's got to be one or the other.
For the most part, there's kind of different categories of airplanes. Like you have your light single engines, like your 150s, your Cherokees that most people think of, like, oh, I went and got my private pilot's license. Then you have your light twins, that you get a little more speed out, a little more legs. You get into like your airline type, which is kind of like your 737s, like the KC-135. Obviously, we refuel, but we're kind of an airline type. We just go up, we cruise, we don't do anything super crazy. And it's your pointing nose stuff, like your fighter jets that everybody's like, oh, those guys are super badass, right? So 1,000 different airplanes, like most of them are going to fly exactly the same. So
Gotcha.
I'd rather say 1,000 different fish. But with that in mind, I would say that I have a buddy that is a killifish nut. And if you know any killifish guys, they're all out of their mind and crazy. They have shoe boxes everywhere. But he's actually bred, I think he's up to 450 species of killifish alone now, not counting freshwater fish. So
I didn't even know there was that many.
The whole 1,000 species of fish thing's not that far off in.
Yeah. Scotty is a big killifish guy. I want to get into them. They're on my short list for sure. Is there one airplane that you would just absolutely, one that stands out that you would just love to fly though? I'm sure there's quite a few, but is there one on the top of the list?
So probably the F-22, just because it does. If you want to go do crazy stuff, like the F-22 can do things that it's shouldn't be, physically capable. But thrust vectoring is awesome. There's actually Northrop Grumman. Before they selected the F-22, Northrop Grumman produced it was the YF-23 at the time, and it was a more capable airplane. But things happen, and the F-22 is a little bit cheaper, and it's still super cool. So F-22 would be awesome to get out to go experience. Like I said, I've flown an F-16, and it was a lot of fun, even for an old jet. Like the jets I fly were built in the late 50s. So imagine like the world's greatest air force is flying 67-year-old airplanes, but it's accurate. But yeah, like for the most part, the jet I fly is going to fly like a 737, or you take off, you cruise forever, you land, and that's kind of the end of that story. So,
have you ever jumped out of an airplane?
I have not. There's no good reason to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Like, as long as the engines are turning and it has two wings, ride that bitch out.
Next up is Coral. Hi, Coral. What is Mike's favorite fish to eat, and would you keep them / raise them?
I would say favorite fish to eat is probably red snapper. So if you're ever down in the Gulf and you decide to go get seafood, like tuna, like various species of tuna are going to be popular. Mahi is always popular. Red snapper is a little bit less common because it's a little bit more seasonal, but red snapper is absolutely delicious. I've never caught one, so I've just eaten everybody else's red snappers. But redfish themselves, like red drum, it's super ton fun to catch out of a kayak, and then super delicious fish. So I like to throw them on the grill. Pretty tasty.
Okay.
I think all fried fish taste the same. So, I mean, fried walleye tastes like fried catfish, tastes like, fried cod to me.
Gotcha. I like fish. I think salmon. I think salmon is my favorite, which is probably, pretty cliche, but absolutely love salmon. I could eat it all the time. It just jumped on me, so I have to scroll back up.
We were talking about hobbies. I'm sure you guys probably have noticed on my channel, but different beverages are a little bit of a hobby. So this is actually a beer from Germany.
What's it? Schnitz? Here, I'm going to put you on the big screen real quick so we can see the can. So we can see your can.
Schnitzelbomber lager beer.
Schnitzelbomber.
So
What does Schnitzelbomber mean?
I don't
That
know.
means something, right? Schnitzelbomber?
I'm sure it does. That's so that is the name of the brewery itself. But
Oh, do it one more time. Hold it up for us one more time.
Yep.
Lager beer. Hell. Does it just say hell?
it does. So like a Hellies is like a type of a lager.
Oh, I used to drink a lot of beer, but I didn't care what kind it was. So I never had very.
Those back in the Natty Ice days of your 20s, probably.
Let's see. Okay, next is Oinky. Hi, Oinky. Let's see. She said hugs. I cannot thank you enough for my gorgeous prints. And she wants to know if you have any dream projects you want to accomplish with fish keeping that you have not executed yet. Anything you really want to do that you haven't been able to do yet.
As far as anything I'd want to do, just I'd like to set up a permanent, like a more permanent reef. Dying over here.
Bless you.
Thank you. So the longest I've run a reef is for a couple years. I'd like to get one actually like up and established and mature. So I'd say that's on the to-do list. And then just breed more fish. Like making that list longer is always a goal. Particularly the stuff that's less common or potentially like threatened or endangered, just to spread that around the hobby a little bit.
Yeah, I like that part too. Let's see. Coral wants to know if you prefer YJ, TJ, or CJ for the Jeeps.
So nobody likes square headlights, so YJs are out. CJs are cool, but they're super uncomfortable. So I've got a '97 TJ and which is the Wrangler, like a traditional Wrangler, just 2-door, and then I have a 2012 JKU, which is the 4-door unlimited. So the new one's nice. The old one's my toy. It's my baby.
Do they make CJs anymore? Do they?
No. So they stopped making CJs in the early '80s.
That's what I thought.
They had the 3s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 10s, and then they switched. So they had a wide variety of CJs that were all a little bit different from each other. And then in the early '80s, they switched over to the YJ, which had so CJs were leaf springs all the way around headlights. In the early '80s, they switched to a YJ, which had leaf springs all the way around, square headlights. That's kind of like the ugly stepchild of the Wrangler family. And then in 1996, technically it was not a 1996 model, but in 1996 they switched to the TJ, which they finally switched to coil springs on all 4 corners and went back to round headlights. That's your more traditional like Jeep type look.
Yeah.
2007 they came out with the 4-door, which they dubbed the JK from 2007 to 2017, and 2018 they came out with they tweaked it a little bit. Fiat had their way with things once Fiat completely took over. And so now they refer to the Wrangler as the JL, which has both 2-door and 4-door options. And now they have the 4XE, which is hybrid gas and electric. So
I had a Grand Cherokee, which is more like an SUV to me, but that thing had almost 300,000 miles on it when we got rid of it.
Yeah, I had
no issues.
I had a 2005 Grand Cherokee for a while. Super, like the Grand Cherokees were always super comfortable. The new ones are super comfortable. For a while, they made the SRT Grand Cherokees, which were pretty quick, all-wheel drive, had a Hemi in them, and then they switched over to they have the Track Hawk, which is pretty quick.
Say that again.
The Track Hawk. It's a Cherokee Track Hawk.
It just sounds. Is that the first time the guest was pocket modded? Yeah, that's weird. Kelly deleted your message there, which I didn't even know you could. I didn't realize that was something that could be edited. And she obviously did it on accident.
No, I
What
didn't
the hell, Kelly? Kelly coming in that. That's funny. Okay, next one up in hi Ivy, Mountain Greenery. If you could live in any one of your aquariums, which would it be and why? So you're shrunken down. You live in that. You know.
So obviously you guys have seen the fish room. It's not a whole lot to look at. It's more of it's definitely a working fish room designed towards breeding and raising fish. So it'd be the 125, which is the planted display upstairs that you guys have seen a million times. It's kind of my baby. It's the only one that most people get to see when they come over to the house, just because it's the only one that's usually presentable and worth looking at. I mean, people think, like I tell people that I breed fish in the basement, like, oh, like they're not sure how to feel about it, and then I show them and like tell them what's going on, like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, and you show them all the different strains of fish. But if I had to live in one of my own tanks, it'd be the 125. It's obviously it's the best looking. It's got the most space. It's cush. It gets the most attention because it's out in my eyesight every day. So if I'm walking by, I'd throw my hands in there and pull out algae or move plants around or whatever. So
Okay, next up is Alishon. Who's your favorite hobby icon? And he lists a bunch of them there. Loisel, I know I pronounced that one. Lacourt, Innes, Sokolov, Axelrod. Had to add him, I guess. He says, etc. Do you have like a sort of a a favorite hobby icon?
I would say, right now, the past few years I've been big into the planted scene a little bit more. I really think that Takashi Amano just put like actual like planted tanks on the mainstream, because people have been doing planted tanks since like the 60s and 70s, just with a limited selection. It was, hey, I've got a tank and there's plants in it, but he put like really put planted tanks like out on the scene, just with some of his, like, obviously he had crazy aquascapes that were a little bit more natural than some of the silly dioramas and stuff that we see now, which are impressive. But just it's a fish tank. It's not a painting on a wall. So I don't know that I'd be able to pick out an icon. I could pick out definitely favorites in different categories. Like when it came to planted tanks, Takashi Amano, um Rosario Lacourte has done a ton of cool stuff. I'm not a big Heiko fan. I think you guys know that from our conversations. Uh, Same with Axelrod. I'm big into rainbow fish, so Gary Lang, I like some of his work. I just wish that his attitude was a little bit different about it.
I agree with you on that. I got to meet
So
Gary Langmo, and he's a very nice man.
Ted Judy, I love Ted Judy. I've met Ted Judy in person several times. Super great dude. Scott Fellman is one of those guys that he's not super well known. He was one of the guys that originally started Unique Corals before he started Tannin Aquatics, focusing on the botanical side of things and freshwater and brackish. But the dude he's super genius, and he just thinks outside the box. He's not afraid to. He's got a podcast. He calls it The Tint. It's usually like 10 to 15-minute little segments where he talks on a topic, and he's not afraid to call things the way he sees it. He's like, "Hey, I think this trend is bullshit. This is why. This is where I think we need to go instead." So you just, not that there aren't people like pushing the boundaries a little bit, but like he was kind of one of like the guys like, hey, like let's get into blackwater tanks a little bit more and kind of put those on the mainstream. And he was like huge salty guy before, so he's going from like all these colorful corals, these harvested and selling and making a ton of money on to putting plants in fish tanks and thinking that brown water is cool. So it just he's just got a wide variety of experience, and he's super knowledgeable, always willing to help, just super personable.
Okay. Next up is Jenna. She's got a very important question. Which state does Mike think has the best corn?
Best corn?
Yeah.
I'd say Iowa's got pretty good corn. I'm not gonna lie. I love some Iowa corn. South Dakota's not too bad, but
That's what they're
Iowa's
known
got some great
for.
corn. Yeah.
Is Iowa really known for anything else? Worst weather in the nation, probably, but anything else really?
Bush Light, but that goes back to corn, I think. So
Is Bush Light made there?
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we got I don't have any, but Bush Light actually makes corn cans. So it's the official beverage of Iowa.
Corn cans?
It's just a can with like corn. It looks like a cob of corn because they've got
Okay.
corn printed all around it.
I was thinking like some like weird plastic made out of corn, that you know. Next up, if Mike wasn't, and this is from Kyle, if Mike wasn't doing what he's doing for a living, what would he be doing?
I'd probably be in the biology field again.
Yeah,
I would never run a fish store. I have no interest. I there's money to be made in fish, and I can make a few bucks to run my hobby selling fish and plants. I don't want my hobby to become my job. I don't want to have to rely on it for money because then it just takes the fun out of it.
yeah.
Kudos to Dan for doing that. I don't know how he does it. That's crazy, but he's doing great things over Dan's fish. Myself, like I said, I just don't want my hobby to become my job. So I'd get back into the biology field probably. If I wasn't, we'll assume that if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, which is flying in some sort of capacity, I definitely get back into biology. I like the bench work of biology. Um, it does involve a lot of data entry that I'm not fond of, but there's interns for that. And I'd like to get into the research side of things. So
You and Kelly could hang out.
we could.
Although she doesn't do that anymore either, right? So next up is does Mike believe in aliens from Big Cat?
Um, I'm not saying they don't exist. There, you see some weird things while you're flying. You fly at night long enough, and you'll see some weird stuff that you're like, huh, makes you wonder.
Well, I've never flown. And I've seen plenty of weird things at night.
That's because your 20s.
Yeah, flashbacks. Zenny, what's the rest of Mike's ideal life in 5 words? This is a hard one.
What does that even mean? What
So-
does that even mean? There's 5 words.
So what would you love the rest of your life to be like, but you can only use 5 words to describe it? It's so hard. She makes people think.
I'd use 4 words and just say time with my family, because that's one thing that obviously, like, I have a super awesome job. I get to go to some really, really shitty places, but for the most part, most places are cool to see. You get to travel the world and do stuff, but you lose time with your family, right? And nobody's ever died and wished they got to fly airplanes more, right? They're like, "Yeah, man, I wish I would have spent a little more time with my family." So that's the route I would go.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's good you know that now and not, 20 years from now.
And that's the thing. Like, so the past few years, I've been gone way more than I ever have before, or probably will be in the future. And I figured, I got to see my kid hit, like, the baby toddler stages, and then they kind of hit this lull, right? From 4 to like 6, nothing really changes. I'll be honest, like, they grow up a little bit, sure, but then they hit like 7, like, okay, now you're starting to do stuff. So now my kid's 8. So my theory the past few years was do all my flying and traveling that I can do. Just, get out, get all the experience I need for future work stuff, whatever, and then slow back down and spend time with the kid now that he's getting it. So now that he's more involved in sports and different activities, the plan is to be home a little bit more and
Gotcha.
just slow down, enjoy things with the family.
Yeah.
I've kind of established myself in my career, and I've done everything that I need to do to open up future opportunities. So now I can kind of slow down and kick back and just sit back and enjoy things a little bit.
Any plans for a second child or
Originally my wife wanted 3, and 6 months after the first one didn't sleep, like, at all, ever.
Yeah.
I said, so what do you think now? She said, hell no. So
We have 3, and we tried to do it 5 years apart so that Michelle could recuperate. So because that's a horrible thing for a woman's body to go through. So that way she was able to recuperate between them. We came pretty close. There's the first 2 are 5 years apart, and then the second 2 are 4 years apart, but
Okay.
almost 5 years. So we planned it pretty damn good. It worked out. It was one of the few things in my life that I planned that actually worked out the way I wanted to.
There you go.
Let's see. So Nano Aquarium guy's up next. He says, "What's your favorite genre of books, movies, and TV? What do you dig to read and watch? I guess."
So as far as books go, I would generally say nonfiction, whether it's historical based. There's a lot of aviation books like World War II type stuff out there. I just finished a book called Indestructible. It's about an old Navy pilot in World War II that did some work around the flying around the Philippines when Japan was moving south into the Philippines. So that was kind of a cool story. As far as non-history type stuff, um, again,
Oh,
I've got
yep, I got that.
George Farmer's book. I've got Karen
Yep.
Randall's book, Sunken Gardens. I've got my copy of Ty Stratman's Biotopes book on pre-order that should release in January. So just hobby related stuff. I mean, it's like YouTube is cool and the internet is fun and all, but just having something like tangible, like in your hands, just like I mean, it's just it's something different, and it feels like I mean, don't get me wrong, like anybody can go self-publish a book, Diana, um, and people think that it's super cool because she wrote a book about it. Um, but this is QC'd a little bit better than that one, and I have a copy of it. I'm not trying to dog on her too much. I do have a copy of it, and I've read it once, and I'll reference it just for the sake of discussions. I don't reference it for the sake of anything useful. Um, as far as movies go, sci-fi probably. Star Wars is my favorite. I'm a big Star Wars guy. Lord of the Rings was an excellent series of movies that I've only ever watched once. I was like, man,
Really?
that is awesome. But I'm like, that is like 3 hours a piece is a commitment.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. Like, if I make it through a 3 hour movie, like, whew, I should have done something more productive with my life, I think. But
We binge it every few years as a family. We
really,
watch we try to do that with like the Harry Potter and the Star Wars and all those big franchises, the Marvel
yeah,
universe. We try to go back and watch them all and binge them all in order as a family.
yeah.
So
That's one thing. The Marvel Universe. I mean, if one's on, I'll sit and watch it. But I've never like, I'm not super hardcore into it. Um, some of them, I feel like they just run out of ideas, so they try to reinvent the same story with a different character. But
yeah, being a comic book reader, which I have been most of my life, I have a huge collection of comic books in a
okay,
Uh, this room used to actually, before I got into fish a few years ago, was comic books. It was shelves and shelves of long boxes with comics in them. I've been a big comic fan most of my life, and yeah, the movies probably I can see that, but they are from stories that were written, years and decades ago. You know what I mean? So yeah, it can sort of feel that way, but I don't think that was the original. Well, it definitely wasn't the original intent, but there wasn't any like copying going on back.
right.
That's not entirely true either, but I get where you're coming from.
Mhm.
All right, let's move along. Nathan, rebuilding the world. Okay, so it's after the apocalypse, but things are settled down. What aquarium fish is being saved so that we get to keep one fish? That's all there is. One aquarium fish, not one species, one type of fish. Well, that would be the same thing. And what fish shouldn't be in the hobby?
So what species get saved? Um, I would say, and if we're talking about a species, not like a group or anything, I would, I'd honestly say the guppy. And I'll tell you why. Because there's so if you get into guppy genetics, like people have got that like dialed down way beyond anything that you'll ever see. And
Yeah,
there's so much diversity and so much work that you can do with them to develop new strains and color morphs. They also their useful like life period. Like you can go through a few generations of guppies within a year, so you can actually see what you're doing at work in a reasonable amount of time. Like if you try to do that with something like compressiceps or calvus, like it takes those bastards like 8 years to grow just to a sexable size. Like those are the slowest growing MFers on the face of the planet. So I would say honestly the guppy just for its usefulness. It's something that every single person in the hobby can enjoy. It's
yeah,
something that can grow with you. Like you may start like, hey, I got this 10-gallon tank. I'm gonna get some guppies because they look cool. and then you can get into breeding them because it's not super hard to breed. And then as you become more advanced, you're like, okay, well, I want to get into the genetics and I want to start selectively breeding them. And then I want to line breed them for specific traits. And you just kind of evolve your way through different skill sets and different levels of knowledge. So I'd say the guppy sticks around. Um,
Good
as,
answer. I like it.
as far as a single fish that goes away, um, there's too many. There's like picking a fish to keep is easy for the sake of the hobby. Picking one fish to make go away is a little more problematic. Probably anything that gets over like 4 inches, because once you hit like 4 inches, like you start needing some serious tank space that most people are not willing to give up, and then you get into aggression problems just because it's a I don't know there's a that's a huge rabbit hole you could go down to. I couldn't pick one fish that goes away, um, to be honest. Well, so if I had to pick a single fish to get just wipe out of the hobby right now, it'd probably be something like the red tail catfish because
Hmm.
super cool fish. But everybody and their brother that buys them at an inch and a half or 2 inches for $5 or $10,
Yeah.
like, oh well, I'm gonna build this huge pond someday. Well, guess what? Maybe a quarter of a percent of anybody that ever does
Yeah.
those intentions actually build anything that even resembles a pond. And guess what? Even if you build a pond, that bastard grows to 4 feet. That better be a big ass pond. I'm just saying. And guess it's going to eat anything you put in it. So have fun paying
Yeah.
the bills for food. I don't know how some of these monster fish guys that keep big fish, I don't know how people feed them. Even if you look at uh, some of the puffers, like those like thanks to Corey, like Mabu puffers are more popular now. But I mean, you got to their food bill is going to be more than fish. It's not a cheap fish to begin with. So
Yeah. My answer for that was the common pleco, but much the same reason. But and the only reason I really said the common pleco was because they are just sold like crazy everywhere, and they get massive. And the same thing. It just there's not a lot of responsibility with the big box stores. Usually, sometimes there is, but usually when they're selling those, you hear that story all the time. Somebody bought common pleco, same thing as you were talking about, but they were tiny and they got to be just massive. Okay, next one's Zenny with her question. Last meal, prison rules. It is so. And one extra. Okay, so that's a good one. So it's whatever meal that's your last meal. It can be anything in the world. What are you going to have? And which fancy beer would be drunk with it?
uh, I love steak, but I'm a big barbecue kick right now. Like I could eat brisket and ribs probably every other day of the week. So probably something barbecue as far as food goes. Um, I mean, like I said, I'm on a barbecue kick, but I'd probably choose a steak. Maybe like a big ribeye, perhaps. And then as far as a beverage, so they actually make it's dragon's milk. Dragon's milk's traditionally a pretty dark beer, but they have dragon's milk white right now, which is super delicious. Um,
I have no idea what that is. I'm going to look it up just real quick. Again, I've been out of. I was a big drinker, uh, and now I drink really. I mean, I'll have a couple of drinks throughout the year, but I really only drink at the Keystone Clash now.
yeah, so dragon's milk white. It's a white stout, but it's barrel aged. So you get a lot of the strength and heaviness of a darker beer, but in something a little bit lighter and potentially more palatable. Not quite so bitter as some of the dark beers are.
It's a nod to New Holland Brewing's 20 years of barrel aging expertise and commitment to innovation in the name of flavor. I'm just trying to let's see.
I'm not a sour. I can do some sours. I'm not an IPA guy at all. Like some of the hazy IPAs are okay. Most of them I think taste like pine sol. For the most part, pilsners and lagers mostly taste the same. Hefeweizens are good if you like German type beers.
So it says it's smooth and velvety, abounding with notes of coffee, chocolate, and vanilla.
It's a it's a good one. Like a lot of the darker beers, like okay, it's got to be cold outside for me to drink this because it's going to be heavy and it's going to warm me up. Uh, but you get some of that strength without all the heavy weigh you down, make you feel like you want to go to sleep with a white stout.
I think that's why I'd prefer to do like a Captain and Coke, because it doesn't fill me up, and I like the flavor, and rum tastes like Christmas. And all right, let's move along. Pyle, I did not get your email. When did you send it? Send me another one, would you please, Pyle? I'm sorry. Yeah, send me another one, would you? Because I didn't see it. I don't see anything in my spam. I just looked real quick, and I'm not seeing it at all. So if you would please send me another one. Maybe I just missed it. Bex, nice. Did you do a send over on Saturday? Oh, yeah, this Saturday I'll be doing a stream with Nathan. All right, looking for the next one. Let's see how much we got. About 15 minutes left. It's Kyle again, and of course it's an airplane one again. What is the craziest flying story Mike has that you're allowed to tell us?
I mean, I've seen some weird stuff. I haven't seen anything too crazy. I've never been intercepted by jets from a different air force, so that's a plus. I mean, I'm like kind of disappointing because like, yeah, it'd be cool if like there's planes that aren't supposed to be right next to you, but that hasn't happened yet. We were out over the AOR, the area of responsibility, on a deployment once, and we completely lost a hydraulic system. So that meant like we didn't have autopilot. Some of our flight controls weren't, fully functional. Some of our fuel pumps didn't work. So that was a problem. So we ended up flying. It took us about probably 3 hours to get back to the base we were deployed at, to land. But like I said, not that crazy. But anytime you're in an airplane and something doesn't work, it'll get your attention.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
I've hit birds, but I've never lost an engine. So shutting an engine down sucks. Fortunately, like I said, our jet has 4 of them, so shutting that one engine down is not too bad. It's kind of like the B-52. They've got 8 of them, so the dreaded 7-engine approach isn't anything out of the ordinary. But
Okay. Next up, Nano Aquarium Guy. What's up, Jay? And hello, everybody. People I missed. Thank you for hanging out with us for almost 2 hours. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Jay wants to know your favorite YouTuber outside of the Fish Fam. Not fish related, even.
so
Not
so
even,
not, like outside of the fish fam, or just not fish related?
let's say even farther. Let's say just not even fishy related. So something totally unrelated to fish keeping.
God, I honestly don't watch a lot of YouTube stuff. It'd probably be something Jeep related. Like Bleep and Jeep is fun. Trail Recon's not bad. Just some of that stuff. Um, yeah, there's some aviation stuff that I watch, not a ton. If you sit at work and talk about airplanes all day, you don't necessarily want to come home and talk about airplanes all night and listen to that stuff.
Gotcha. So your
Uh,
favorite YouTube content is by far fishy content.
I would say the majority of it is fish stuff. Usually, most of the people that I'm subscribed to are fish related. Anybody outside of that, there's like some non-mainstream like news or sports stuff that I watch. I don't want to like. Usually, if I watch YouTube, I might be at the gym and I'm watching like somebody's live stream or an old live stream, or like a how-to stuff like learning Jeep suspension or something. But it's usually I'm looking for something. If I'm on YouTube, it's either hanging out with friends that I can learn like fish stuff from, or searching for something very specific.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of
Gotcha.
times, like Bulk Reef Supply has their 52 weeks of reefing. It was a 52 episode series. They covered the entire setup and maintenance of a reef tank, which was super cool. And they're actually redoing that series. That series came out maybe almost 10 years ago. So they're redoing that with today's modern technology and some tweaks to it just to, compare. So that's one thing that I'll be following closely as it comes out. But yeah, not a lot of YouTube stuff. Big into I do a lot of podcasts. So some financial stuff on podcasts. Starting to expand into real estate a little bit as like a passive income type situation. So Bigger Pockets kind of has some interesting ideas. Um, the Rich Dad Radio from Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. Uh, he's kind of a little bit extreme about some of his financial ideas, but some of that stuff's interesting to listen to. So a little bit more financial, like useful stuff. Generally, I try to lean towards something that'll build me better, whether it's skill set or knowledge set or something. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Let's see. Next up is Paul, and I'm close to the bottom of the chat. So, it's not a question. He just says, let's turn Rico Stan on to painkillers at the Clash. They go down so easy. What are painkillers? I mean, I know what painkillers are, but he said it with a capital P, so I'm assuming it's a kind of drink or a beer. I will, as you know, I will eat or drink just about anything at least once. So,
Vienna
Jenna,
sausages.
What's that?
You ate the Vienna sausages. I haven't seen you drink the Vienna sausages yet. So
No, I did not. I poured out the hot dog water that comes with those, which is pretty gross. But K Stu sent those to me, and if he had said we would really like you to drink the juice, I would have. I didn't even think about doing that because that's gross. That would have taken it to another level because I actually like Vienna sausages, even though I know what they are. I still, I enjoy them. So, sure. Jenna P wants to know Freaky Friday question. So, what two YouTubers would you have switch bodies in like a Freaky Friday type thing?
Like I'm switching with one of them?
You pick, it can just two. It could be you, it could be any two. It could be, it doesn't have to be you. Any two. So you make them live each other's lives for a certain amount of time, a weekend or something.
I think it'd be entertaining to take somebody that's strictly saltwater and swap them with somebody that's strictly freshwater. So maybe take like Mark Callahan, who's Mr. Saltwater Tank, diehard saltwater guy, and maybe swap him with somebody like Ted Judy, who they both have, I think, similar personalities, but they both do completely different things, and just make them learn something completely out of what they've been doing for the last 20 years.
Ted Judy, every time you say that name, it reminds me of, hold on. I want to make sure I'm right before I say this. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Oh, it's not going to bring it up. Yes, it is. No, it's Doug Judy. I was Doug Judy, not Ted Judy. Doug Judy. It's a character on a show.
Okay.
A very funny character on a show. But Stephen wants to know your biggest aquarium misinformation pet peeve, and you can pick only one.
Oh my God, all of it.
Just all one. What's one that really stands out? That you hear a lot or something. You hear a lot of people repeating or just drives you crazy every time you hear it.
Oh, geez. There's just one?
Yeah.
I mean, the longer you're around, the more you see, right? It's like whether you know it or not, like you just see more and more of them. The biggest one that I see, God, right now, the past couple years, everybody's on this like more iron, less nitrates to make your plants red thing. In the planted world, and it drives me crazy because more iron is not the answer, and less nitrates. Under the right conditions, reduced nitrates like nitrate limitation or nitrate starvation in plants can help increase red coloration because nitrogen is largely involved in the production of chlorophyll, which obviously makes our plants green. But I can cram 100 parts per million of nitrate into my 125, and I can still get bright reds out of it. And I can cram 4 billion parts per million and iron in there, and it's not going to make the plants any more red. So people like that are just saying stuff that they heard somebody say, and like I said, there's so many of them. It's
yeah, that's a you could go on forever on that one. Dragonlair, what's up, Podrick? I just happened to see your comment. He says you need to watch OTR chef in Bangkok that does history of Thai food. History of Bangkok he teaches is super fascinating. OTR chef in Bangkok. Oinky wants to know if you're going to the Clash by chance.
I wish I could go to the Clash, but just because this summer's been so hectic, I I'm gonna get to some swap meet type deals in the fall. Like I'll be at the Quad City swap meet October 1st. I'll be down at Omaha for the Nebraska Aquarium Society swap meet. If I was gonna go to an event this summer, it would have been Cataclysm this past weekend up
Mm.
at Madison. And
Looks like they had a blast. I saw the
it,
pictures
it
from Kenny and from Roxanne and Peplin and just fantastic freaks. Austin was there. Just a whole bunch of people were there, and it looks like they had a really good time.
it's a lot different type show. I talked to Brian a little bit in the stream last night because he was up there. Brian and Foxy were there with Austin, like you said, Kenny, and a certain other people. It's a lot more. It's specialized on Corridorist and Placostomus. So generally speaking, if you're really interested in that, you're probably uh, and I'm not talking down to anybody. Like if you're into breeding those two types of fish, you're probably a little bit more advanced in the hobby, and you've specialized in those two types of fish, right? Because that's largely what Cataclysm is about. So it generally tends to bring a little bit more experienced crowds. So they have like higher end speakers that are speaking specifically on breeding like maybe one type of fish, right? And then instead of like they'll have like a swap meet style type setup. They'll do room sales where you just post a picture of all the fish you have for sale on your door, and people
Yeah.
just knock on your door, and it's a good time. So
That didn't really happen at the Clash the two times I've gone. The Clash, it's more about the people. I mean, the fish show is amazing. All the vendors and stuff that are there, great. This year is going to be way bigger than last year too. Last year there was about 60 of us from the community that were there, and this year we're looking at about 100. So it's going to be about 100 people just from our little community that are going to be there.
and
So
I like people always talk to me about events like, oh, like what event would you go to? I'm like, the events are all very different. Like, do you want to go for an
yeah,
experience? Like, if you want to go for an experience and like see like, oh, there's big YouTube celebrities and there's big vendor tables set up that are just showing equipment off, then maybe you want aquatic experience or maybe you want aquashella. Do you
yeah,
want to go get to meet people and just hang out with people and be cool? Then you
yeah,
want Clash. If you want something educational that's going to be more like speaker based or more specific, and a little more in depth and detailed, maybe higher level type stuff, well, then maybe Cataclysm is a good deal for you. Like each, they all offer something completely different.
sure,
And if you want to go and buy a bunch of stuff, well, then you probably want more of just like a local swap meet because obviously, like, I know that I haven't gone to the Clash. I've kind of followed the Clash the past few years and seen it develop and continue to grow. Now that Scotty's kind of largely at the helm of it. It seems like there's a little bit more vendor activity going on, not so much like I know Bex was there and she drove in and set up shop, and Sam drove in and set up shop. But like I like the swap meet vibe, to be honest. Like I like to go and just bullshit with somebody that they threw $5 down to get a table, and they've just got all the bags of fish that they wanted to bring, and they're there to bullshit, and they'll trade and they'll do it. You've got 100 bags on your table, they've got 100 bags. You may end up walking out of there with 400 bags of fish because you got good
yeah.
deals or traded or
Well, I think they struck a good balance because they do have that. They have the hobbyist tables, so they have the vendor tables, which is the main portion, but they also have a big section of hobbyist tables that are super cheap that people can go just any regular person can go and set up like that. So it's a good. I think it's a good balance that they've struck between the vendors and the hobbyist level.
yeah, I
We've only
definitely
got a couple minutes left. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I
What were you-
definitely like the direction that things have kind of gone, and I think they're bringing in a good variety of speakers. Like if you look at,
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to dog on anybody or talk down, but if you look at like the Aquashella speaker lineup, you can go watch all those videos on YouTube, and it's going to be the same crap that they're talking about there. And largely, they're bringing like these events, like Aquashella, and I'm not saying it's all their speakers, but a lot of times these events they bring in certain people to draw people to the show just because of who they are. Um,
sure.
so, and I'll use a prime example, and I'm not going to say good things. I'm not going to say bad things. I'm just going to use them as an example. If you bring Joey to a show, people will come to your event just because everybody recognizes the name. Like, oh my god! Like they may
Yeah,
not recognize it. They may not recognize the name for good reasons. But generally speaking, they bring in some of these shows like Aquashella or Aquatic Experience. They bring in the celebrity types because that gets people in the door.
sure.
Now somebody like Keystone Clash, they're bringing in um, Jason Adams from Primetime, who I think he's he's like he's a good mix of like the YouTube celebrity compared to like the actual like information guy. And I do think he offers great information. He offers a wide variety of information based on his experience, and he's got a good like academic background to support it.
Yeah.
As far as like the big YouTube guys that I enjoy for like that I think put out good information, I think Jason Adams is probably one of the best ones. Based like if you take the guys like if you're looking at guys like over 100,000 subs pushing content, I think his is some of the most informational versus the clickbaity projects that some of the other big guys do.
Yeah, the speakers at the Clash are definitely, you've got a great range. I mean, Dan's going to be speaking, Kelly's going to be speaking. I mean, you've got Bentley, you've got so many, it's a good range. It's a good range, I think, of people. Plus the panels that they're going to do, where they're going to have multiple speakers up there as well. So I just feel, well, partly, I want everybody to go to the Clash because it's the only one I go to. It's not too far from home. It's a 5-hour drive. It's the only one I can really make it to each year. So I want to push it and make it as popular as possible. But I also feel like it's just got such a great balance. It's got a little bit of something for everybody.
It does. It really does.
Plus, you can have free wood. I bring a ton of driftwood and stuff to give away and all kinds of other stuff. So, all right, we've only got, it's actually past time. So real quick, let's just scan through. Shelby, hi, Shelby. They're going to get ice cream. And Grant wants to know, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
I'm a big, cookies and cream. Just keep it, pretty basic white bitch. I'm cookies and cream guy.
I couldn't pick one because I like pretty much all of them. All of them.
And that's the weird thing with like ice cream and drinks. I'm not a coffee guy. I don't drink coffee, but I love coffee flavored ice cream and I love coffee flavored beer.
I don't like coffee flavored beer, but I'll do the ice cream. Peplin Cave In, Pooplin. Cataclysm was a blast. He gave us a $5 super chat. Thanks so much, Pooplin. Oh, yeah. I did see a lot of the pictures, and Foxanne texted me and stuff and told me what you guys were doing and things. So yeah, it looked like you had a good time. And I think right now, I don't see any more questions. So I think that's a great time to end it. Again, is there anything you want to mention before we take off? Is there any, either channel wise or anything like that? We cover enough stuff?
I think we covered it pretty well. If you guys have any questions, obviously feel free to hit me up on Discord. If you post on GetGills, it'll get my attention, or you can find me at mike.allthingsfish@gmail.com. I did see one quick thing in the chat. I mentioned like a couple people were talking about wishing that there was another Triple Crown convention. And I will say that the Triple Crown I did not attend, but about everybody that I've talked to that's attended said that while it was cool to have 3 big events in one place, it was basically pick your favorite one of the events because there was too much going on. There was no way you could even touch half that stuff there.
They should have meshed better. They should have worked with each other. And
it turned out, and maybe it was a planning thing. I don't know if the clubs were fighting amongst each other, but it turned out being 3 events in the same location. They were completely separated. Like if you registered with ANGFA, you could only go check in with ANGFA. If you registered with ACA, you could only check in with ACA. If you registered with American Live Bearers, you'd only go check in with American Live. They were in the same location, but even then they were at completely different. It was just spread out. I think it was poorly executed. Good idea, poorly executed. Too much going on.
I heard that same stuff, and I think they should have done a better job of having somebody managing the overall and making sure they were working together. And
that was the issue.
Instead of against each other. One last question. Mikey B wants to know, if you could have invented something that's already been invented, what would it be? So it's something that was already out there. You just want to have the money and the credit for having invented it. Or just having added it to, humanity.
Off the top of my head, I mean, electricity. Like it's not going away. And you could say that you contributed more to humanity than about anything else. So
that's a good answer. Good answer. Thanks for watching this, everybody. Again, this Saturday, 8:00 Eastern Standard Time, Nathan will be joining me for the Focus On, and I don't have the guest for next Tuesday scheduled yet. I've been cutting back on scheduling too far out. So I'll let you know who that's going to be. But thanks, Mike, for joining us. And again, congrats on 1,000. And Patrick said the same thing. Tell Secret Agent Man I said congrats on getting to 1,000.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody in the chat. If you're not subscribed to Rico here, he's doing some awesome things. He's definitely he's the type building the community and bringing everybody together. I like to give him a lot of shit, but he's doing some awesome things in the hobby. And definitely check him out. Hit up the Clash and find a local club. Like, you guys know that I'm a big proponent of local clubs. Either find one to join or make your own. I promise there's at least 10 other people nearby that would definitely be on board. So get out there, have fun. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, whether it's life, family, fish, job, whatever. I'm here to help. So thanks again,
Yeah.
Rico. I appreciate it.
And again, if you guys aren't on Fishcord, you really should. There's no reason to not be there. It's a great resource. It's a great community. Nobody's making any money off it or anything. It's just a tool to help the communities more. So you owe it to yourself to join us over there. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
A lot of the channels out there, they'll give you access to message them directly with questions and stuff. You got Fishcord there, which is an excellent knowledge base. Freshwater, saltwater, everything. There's everything you'd ever want to know is probably there. So definitely.
So many people, experienced people. You've got biologists there. You've got, you just got a wide range of experience and again, people aren't, nobody's judgy and stuff. You just, anyways, let's click the button. I'm clicking buttons.
We'll see you guys.